In the quiet halls of an assisted living home, Daniel sits by the window, clutching an old sequined glove. Memories flood back, of dazzling lights, pounding bass, and the moment his heart stopped for a drag queen named Chase. It was a love forged in glitter and sweat, laughter and tears, and now, he faces life without him. This is the story of a romance that burned brighter than the neon lights of their youth, defying time and death itself. Get ready for a tale of love, loss, and the magic of finding your soulmate when you least expect it. Daniel was 25 when he first stepped into the Velvet Mirage, a place he had only heard whispers about. The club was legendary in the city, a haven where people could be unapologetically themselves, under neon lights and a pounding bass line. For Daniel, it was more than just a club, it was a step into a world he had only dreamed of but never dared to enter. That night, as he crossed the threshold, his heart raced with a mixture of anxiety and excitement. Inside, the air was electric. The room pulsed with energy, a mix of glitter, sweat, and perfume that was intoxicating. People laughed and danced with an unrestrained joy that Daniel had never seen before. He stood near the entrance, wide-eyed, feeling both out of place and utterly captivated. Then, the lights dimmed, and the crowd erupted in cheers. The spotlight found its mark, and Daniel's world shifted. On stage stood Chase, the club's headlining drag queen. His presence was magnetic, his beauty transcendent. Dressed in a sequined gown that sparkled like a galaxy, he commanded the room with every step. His makeup was flawless, his lips painted in a daring red that accentuated his confident smile. But it wasn't just his appearance that struck Daniel, it was the way he moved. Chase didn't just perform, he owned the stage, weaving a spell over everyone watching. As Chase began to sing, his voice filled the room, rich and soulful. It was a love ballad, slow and sultry, and it felt as though he was singing directly to Daniel. Time seemed to stop. Daniel's breath hitched, his chest tightened, and for the first time in years, he felt truly alive. He had never experienced something so overwhelming, so immediate. He didn't just admire Chase. He was utterly transfixed by him. The performance ended with thunderous applause, and Chase took his bows, his eyes scanning the crowd. For a fleeting moment, Daniel swore their eyes met, and his heart skipped a beat. It was ridiculous, he thought. Chase was a star, untouchable, and he was just another face in the crowd. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had passed between them. Daniel made his way to the bar, his hands trembling slightly as he ordered a drink. The music resumed, and the energy in the room surged once more, but Daniel couldn't focus on anything except the performer he had just witnessed. He glanced at the stage, now empty, and wondered if he'd ever get the chance to speak to Chase. He tried to push the thought aside, telling himself it was a foolish fantasy. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. A few minutes later, Chase emerged from the backstage area, still glowing from the performance. He moved through the crowd with an air of effortless charisma, stopping occasionally to chat and take pictures. When he reached the bar, he leaned against it, just a few feet from where Daniel stood. Daniel's pulse quickened. He wanted to say something, anything, but his nerves held him back. "Enjoy the show?" The voice was smooth, warm, and unmistakably directed at him. Daniel turned to find Chase looking at him, a playful smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Daniel swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly dry. "You were incredible," he stammered, his voice barely audible over the music. Chase chuckled, a sound that sent a pleasant shiver down Daniel's spine. "Thank you," he said, his tone genuine. "First time here?" Daniel nodded. "Yeah, first time anywhere like this actually." Chase's eyes softened, and he tilted his head slightly. "Well, welcome to the Velvet Mirage. You picked a good night to come." They talked for what felt like hours, though in reality, it was probably only a short while. Chase was charming and funny, with a sharp wit that kept Daniel on his toes. He asked Daniel about himself, his life, his dreams, and Daniel found himself opening up in a way he hadn't with anyone else. There was an ease between them, a natural connection that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As the night wore on, the club began to empty, but neither of them seemed eager to leave. Chase eventually leaned in closer, his voice low and intimate. "You know," he said, "there's something about you, Daniel. Something different." Daniel's breath caught. "Different how?" Chase smiled, a soft, almost vulnerable smile. "Like you're not just here for the glitter in the show. You're real." The words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Daniel didn't know what to say, so he just smiled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew, in that moment, that his life would never be the same. He had come to the Velvet Mirage looking for an escape, but he had found something much more. Something he didn't yet have the words to describe. "Enjoy the show?" The voice was smooth, warm, and unmistakably directed at him. Daniel turned to find Chase looking at him, a playful smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Daniel swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly dry. "You were incredible," he stammered, his voice barely audible over the music. Chase chuckled, a sound that sent a pleasant shiver down Daniel's spine. "Thank you," he said, his tone genuine. "First time here?" Daniel nodded. "Yeah, first time anywhere like this, actually." Chase's eyes softened, and he tilted his head slightly. "Well, welcome to the Velvet Mirage. You picked a good night to come." They talked for what felt like hours, though in reality, it was probably only a short while. Chase was charming and funny, with a sharp wit that kept Daniel on his toes. He asked Daniel about himself, his life, his dreams, and Daniel found himself opening up in a way he hadn't with anyone else. There was an ease between them, a natural connection that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As the night wore on, the club began to empty, but neither of them seemed eager to leave. Chase eventually leaned in closer, his voice low and intimate. "You know," he said, "there's something about you, Daniel, something different." Daniel's breath caught. "Different how?" Chase smiled, a soft, almost vulnerable smile. "Like you're not just here for the glitter and the show. You're Ruru." The words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Daniel didn't know what to say, so he just smiled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew, in that moment, that his life would never be the same. He had come to the Velvet Mirage looking for an escape, but he had found something much more, something he didn't yet have the words to describe. The next morning, Daniel woke up with a strange mix of emotions, exhilaration, hope, and a tinge of disbelief. He replayed every moment with Chase from the night before, from their first exchange to the way Chase's eyes seemed to linger on his. The world outside felt brighter, yet part of him wondered if it had all been some glitter-drenched dream. But as he reached into his pocket, he found the small, folded napkin with a phone number scribbled in neat handwriting. Chase was written above it, followed by a heart. For hours, Daniel debated whether to call. He didn't want to come off as desperate, but he couldn't ignore the pull he felt. By midday, the tension was unbearable. With a deep breath, he dialed the number, his hands shaking slightly. It rang twice before a familiar, velvety voice answered. "Hello? Hi, it's Daniel, from last night, at the Velvet Mirage." His voice cracked slightly, and he winced. There was a soft chuckle on the other end. "I was hoping you'd call," Chase said. "I was starting to think maybe I'd scared you off." Daniel laughed nervously. "Not at all, I just didn't want to bother you." "You could never bother me," Chase replied, his tone warm and genuine. "Are you free tonight? I'd love to see you again." Daniel's heart leapt. "Yeah, I'm free." "Perfect. Meet me at Starry Nights Cafe at 8, it's quieter than the club, easier to talk." By the time 8 o'clock rolled around, Daniel was a bundle of nerves. He arrived early, choosing a small table by the window, and spent the next 15 minutes rehearsing what he might say. When Chase walked in, Daniel's breath caught. Out of drag, Chase was just as captivating, his features softer but no less striking, his confidence shining through in every step. "You came," Daniel said, standing awkwardly as Chase approached. "I wouldn't miss it," Chase replied, flashing a grin that made Daniel's stomach flip. He sat across from Daniel, leaning forward slightly, as though he couldn't wait to hear what he had to say. They talked for hours, their conversation flowing effortlessly. Chase opened up about his life, how he had discovered drag as a teenager and how it had saved him from feeling invisible. "It's not just about the makeup and the costumes," he explained. "It's about power, about being seen, fully and unapologetically." Daniel listened, captivated, and found himself sharing pieces of his own story, his struggles with acceptance, his fear of being judged, and his longing for a place where he could belong. With Chase, he felt seen in a way he never had before, as though every part of him, his hopes, his insecurities, his dreams, was worthy of love. As the night stretched on, the cafe began to empty, but neither of them seemed to notice. At one point, Chase reached across the table, his fingers brushing against Daniel's. "I know this might sound crazy," Chase said, his voice softer now. "But I feel like I've known you forever." Daniel smiled, his chest tightening. "I feel the same way." The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Chase's eyes searched Daniel's, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to fade away. Then, Chase leaned in, closing the distance between them, and pressed a gentle kiss to Daniel's lips. It was soft, tentative, but it carried the weight of something much deeper. When they finally pulled away, Daniel felt as though his entire world had shifted. "I'm glad I called," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "So am I," Chase replied, his smile radiant. That night marked the beginning of something neither of them could have predicted. Over the weeks that followed, they grew inseparable, their lives intertwining in ways that felt both natural and extraordinary. They spent their days exploring the city, their nights wrapped in each other's arms, and their mornings sharing quiet conversations over coffee. With Chase, Daniel felt a sense of freedom he had never known. A freedom to be himself, completely and without fear. For Chase, Daniel was a reminder of everything he had always believed in: love, connection, and the power of being truly seen. And as their bond deepened, both of them began to realize that what they had was more than just a fleeting romance. It was something rare, something enduring, something worth holding on to no matter what. As the months turned into years, Daniel and Chase's bond only grew stronger. Their love flourished not in grand gestures, but in the quiet, everyday moments that built their life together. Chase moved into Daniel's modest apartment, trading the sequined glamour of the stage for a home filled with laughter, shared meals, and lazy Sundays in bed. At first, the transition was an adjustment for both of them. Daniel had never lived with anyone before, and Chase was used to the fast-paced life of a performer. But they found balance in their differences. Daniel's steady presence became an anchor for Chase, grounding him after long nights at the Velvet Mirage. In turn, Chase brought a spark to Daniel's life, encouraging him to take risks and embrace the unexpected. One of their favorite traditions was cooking dinner together. Chase wasn't much of a cook. He was notorious for burning even the simplest dishes, but he loved to dance around the kitchen, singing into a wooden spoon while Daniel tried to keep a straight face. "You're lucky you're cute," Daniel would tease, dodging Chase's playful swats as he rescued yet another charred meal. Their shared moments extended beyond their home. Chase introduced Daniel to the world of drag, inviting him to shows and even letting him help with his costumes. For the first time, Daniel saw the artistry and resilience behind Chase's performances. "It's not just makeup and wigs," Chase explained one evening as he carefully applied eyeliner. "It's a way to tell stories, to show people they're not alone." Inspired by Chase's passion, Daniel found his own way to give back. He began volunteering at an LGBTQ+ youth center, offering support to those who, like him, had once felt lost and alone. Chase often joined him, hosting workshops on self-expression and performing impromptu lip syncs that left the kids in awe. Together, they created a space where others could find the same acceptance they had found in each other. Their life wasn't without challenges. There were arguments, over dirty dishes, forgotten dates, and the occasional jealous streak, but they always found their way back to each other. Chase had a temper, fiery and quick, while Daniel was more reserved, preferring to avoid confrontation. But over time, they learned to meet in the middle, to fight for their relationship instead of against each other. One particularly hard year tested them in ways they hadn't anticipated. Chase's father fell ill, and the strain of caring for him while maintaining his career took a toll. Daniel stepped in without hesitation, offering unwavering support and reminding Chase that he didn't have to face it alone. "We're a team," Daniel said one night as Chase broke down in his arms. "Whatever happens, we'll get through it together." Despite the hardships, their love endured. They celebrated victories big and small, from Chase's standing ovation at a sold-out show to Daniel's first public speech at the youth center. Each milestone was a testament to the life they were building, a life filled with purpose, joy, and an unshakable belief in each other. One crisp autumn evening, as they walked hand in hand through the park, Chase stopped abruptly. The leaves crunched underfoot as he turned to face Daniel, his eyes sparkling with a mix of nerves and determination. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you," Chase began, reaching into his coat pocket. Daniel's breath caught as Chase pulled out a small velvet box. "I've spent my whole life performing," Chase said, his voice steady despite the tears brimming in his eyes. "But with you, I don't have to pretend. You see me, the real me, and you love me anyway. I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you've made me. Daniel, will you marry me?" For a moment, Daniel was speechless, his heart swelling with an emotion so intense it threatened to overwhelm him. Then, with a laugh that was half sob, he threw his arms around Chase. "Yes," he whispered, his voice breaking. "1,000 times, yes." That night, beneath a sky full of stars, they promised each other forever. And as they walked home, their fingers intertwined, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, just as they always had. The wedding was nothing short of magical. Chase insisted on a small ceremony, something intimate and filled with only the people who mattered most to them. Held at a charming garden venue, surrounded by blooming flowers and warm evening light, it was a celebration that mirrored their relationship, vibrant, heartfelt, and unapologetically authentic. Chase wore a sleek white suit with a touch of sparkle in the cuffs, a subtle nod to his drag roots. Daniel opted for a classic black suit, but the joy radiating from his face was anything but understated. As they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Chase's voice wavered as he promised, "I will always love you for who you are, Daniel. You've taught me that I'm more than the person I pretend to be on stage, you've shown me that I'm enough." Daniel, in turn, spoke of how Chase had transformed his life. "You brought light into my world when I didn't even realize how dark it was," he said. "You've given me love, laughter, and a family I never thought I'd have. I promise to stand by you, through every storm and every sunny day, for as long as I live." Their first kiss as a married couple was met with a chorus of cheers and applause. It was a moment of pure joy, the culmination of years of love, struggle, and growth. As they danced beneath strings of twinkling lights, it felt as though time itself had stopped, leaving only the two of them, wrapped in each other's arms. Married life brought new joys and challenges. They moved into a cozy house with a backyard that Chase immediately claimed as his project. Gardening became his newfound passion, though Daniel often joked that Chase spent more time posing with the plants than tending to them. "I can't help it," Chase would say with a laugh. "Everything deserves its moment in the spotlight." Daniel, meanwhile, continued his work at the youth center, becoming a mentor and advocate for countless young people. He found fulfillment in helping others, and Chase often joined him, bringing a touch of glamour and levity to the often serious work. Together, they became a beloved pair in their community, a symbol of hope and resilience. As the years passed, their bond only deepened. They supported each other through career changes, health scares, and the inevitable trials of life. Chase decided to step back from performing, choosing instead to focus on mentoring aspiring drag artists. He found joy in teaching others, passing down the lessons he had learned and encouraging his students to find their own voices. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sun set, Daniel turned to Chase with a contented smile. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" he asked. "All the time," Chase replied, reaching for Daniel's hand. "It's been a hell of a journey, hasn't it?" "It has," Daniel agreed. "But I wouldn't change a thing. Every moment, every struggle, it's all been worth it because it brought me to you." Chase squeezed his hand, his eyes soft with love. "You're my greatest performance," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "And the only one I never want to end." Their life together was far from perfect, but it was real, and it was theirs. They built a home filled with laughter, love, and an unbreakable partnership. And even as they grew older, their love remained as vibrant as it had been on the day they first met. As they entered their later years, Daniel and Chase remained inseparable. They had become fixtures in their community, known for their warmth, humor, and the way they still looked at each other as if no one else in the world existed. Their lives were rich with friends, memories, and the quiet satisfaction of a love that had weathered every storm. But life, unpredictable and relentless, had one more trial in store for them. It started subtly, a few forgotten words, a stumble Chase brushed off with a joke, and an occasional fatigue that he attributed to age. Daniel noticed but didn't press. Chase was fiercely independent and loathed being fussed over. "I'm fine," he would say with a wave of his hand. "Just getting old, like the rest of us." But the symptoms worsened. One evening, while preparing dinner, Chase dropped a glass bowl. The shatter startled them both, but it was the look on Chase's face that froze Daniel. For the first time, Chase seemed genuinely frightened. "I don't know why I dropped it," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I didn't even feel it leave my hand." Daniel insisted they see a doctor, and after a battery of tests, they were given the diagnosis: early-onset Parkinson's disease. The news hit them like a freight train. Chase, the vibrant performer who had once commanded stages with ease, now faced a future where his body might betray him. At first, Chase tried to downplay it. "I'm not dead," he quipped, forcing a smile. "And I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon." But Daniel saw the cracks in his armor, the way Chase's hands shook slightly when he thought no one was looking, the frustration that flashed in his eyes when he struggled with tasks that used to be second nature. Daniel became Chase's fiercest advocate, researching treatments, adjusting their home to make it more accessible, and standing by his side at every doctor's appointment. "We're in this together," he told Chase one night as they lay in bed, their fingers intertwined. "Just like always." But Chase struggled with the loss of his independence. For a man who had built his life on strength and confidence, the idea of relying on others was almost unbearable. There were moments when the frustration boiled over into anger, directed at no one in particular but often spilling onto Daniel. "I don't need your pity," Chase snapped one afternoon when Daniel offered to help him tie his shoes. "It's not pity," Daniel replied softly, his heart aching. "It's love. And if the roles were reversed, you'd do the same for me." Chase's expression crumbled, and tears filled his eyes. "I'm scared, Danny," he admitted, his voice breaking. "I'm so scared." Daniel pulled him into his arms, holding him as he cried. "I know," he whispered, "and it's okay to be scared, but you're not alone. I'm here, and I always will be." Over time, they found a new rhythm, adapting to the changes together. Chase continued mentoring young drag performers, though he had to adjust his approach as his symptoms progressed. He still found joy in the art, even if he could no longer take the stage himself. Daniel, meanwhile, became his rock, quietly shouldering the burdens that Chase couldn't. Their love deepened in ways neither of them had expected. Every moment became more precious, every touch and every smile a reminder of the life they had built together. Even in the face of uncertainty, they clung to each other, finding strength in their unbreakable bond. One winter evening, as they sat by the fire, Chase reached for Daniel's hand. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked softly. "Choosing me, this life?" Daniel looked at him, his eyes filled with unwavering love. "Not for a second," he said. "Every moment with you has been worth it. And I wouldn't trade it for anything." Chase smiled, his face illuminated by the flickering flames. "You're still my greatest love story, Danny," he said. "Even now." And in that moment, despite everything they had been through, they both knew that their love was as fierce and enduring as ever. A love that would carry them through whatever lay ahead. The years continued to pass, and though Chase's condition worsened, his spirit remained unyielding. With Daniel by his side, he navigated the challenges with grace and courage, refusing to let his illness define him. But the time came when even the strongest love couldn't hold back the inevitable. On a crisp spring morning, Chase's health took a turn. He had been bedridden for weeks, his once vibrant body now frail, but his mind sharp as ever. Daniel never left his side, holding his hand through every labored breath, every whispered word. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the world outside, and the two of them shared moments of peace that felt almost sacred. "Danny," Chase rasped one evening, his voice barely above a whisper. Daniel leaned in closer, his heart aching with the knowledge of what was coming. "Promise me something." "Anything," Daniel said, his voice trembling. Chase's eyes, still bright with the spark that had captivated Daniel all those years ago, locked onto his. "Don't let the light go out, keep living, keep loving, promise me you'll carry on, even when I'm not here." Tears spilled down Daniel's cheeks as he nodded. "I promise," he choked out, his voice breaking. "But how am I supposed to live without you?" Chase smiled faintly, his hand weakly squeezing Daniel's. "You already know how. You've been my rock, my everything. You'll be okay, Danny, you're stronger than you think." That night, under the soft glow of the bedside lamp, Chase slipped away. Daniel held him until his body grew cold, his heart breaking into pieces he wasn't sure could ever be put back together. The man who had been his world, his partner, his greatest love, was gone. In the days that followed, Daniel moved through a fog of grief, his home feeling emptier than he ever thought possible. Friends and neighbors offered their condolences, but nothing could fill the void Chase had left behind. The sequined costumes, the photos on the walls, even the garden Chase had adored, all were reminders of a life that now felt like a distant dream. But as the weeks turned into months, Daniel began to honor Chase's memory in the ways that mattered most. He returned to the youth center, sharing Chase's story with the kids who looked up to him. He hosted drag workshops, teaching the next generation to embrace their authenticity and shine as brightly as Chase had. Slowly, the pain of loss became a bittersweet reminder of the love they had shared. One evening, Daniel sat in their old garden, the setting sun casting a warm glow over the flowers Chase had planted. He clutched an old sequined glove, one of Chase's favorites, and closed his eyes. The memories came flooding back, Chase's laugh, the way he lit up a room, the feel of his hand in Daniel's. And for the first time, Daniel didn't feel alone. He felt Chase's presence in the wind, in the flowers, in the very air around him. "I kept my promise," Daniel whispered, his voice steady. "I'll always carry you with me." And though Chase was gone, his love remained, a constant, unshakable force that would guide Daniel for the rest of his days. Their story, full of glitter and laughter, heartache and resilience, would live on in every person they had touched, a testament to the power of love that defied even death. As Daniel sat under the fading light, he smiled through his tears, knowing that their love story wasn't over. It had simply taken on a new form, one that would endure forever. The garden became Daniel's sanctuary, a living tribute to Chase. Every flower reminded him of their laughter, every breeze carried a whisper of their love. Visitors often stopped to admire it, unaware that it was a place where a love story had bloomed, flourished and left its eternal mark. Daniel donated Chase's costumes to the Velvet Mirage, where they became part of a permanent display. The club honored Chase's legacy with an annual show, celebrating the artistry and authenticity he had embodied. Daniel attended every year, cheering through tears as new performers carried Chase's spirit forward. In moments of solitude, Daniel wrote letters to Chase, pouring his heart onto the page. He tucked them into a small box on their bedside table, a quiet ritual that brought him peace. "You're still with me," he wrote one evening. "In every step I take." Decades later, Daniel, now an elder himself, found companionship in unexpected places. Though no one could ever replace Chase, he opened his heart to friendships and new experiences, proving that love could evolve while remaining true to its origins. When Daniel's time came, he left the world surrounded by love and laughter, his garden in full bloom. Friends gathered to celebrate his life, and among them were those who had been touched by Chase and Daniel's story, a legacy of courage, joy, and unwavering devotion. Somewhere beyond, Daniel and Chase reunited under a glittering sky. Chase extended his hand, his smile as dazzling as ever. "Took you long enough," he teased. Daniel laughed, his heart light. "I told you I'd always find you." And together, they danced once more, their love eternal, their story never ending. What did you think of this story? Did this story move you? Did it make you laugh, cry, or remind you of a love that left an impact on your life? I want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments about this journey filled with love, resilience, and unforgettable memories. Tell me, what touched you the most? And don't forget to rate the story from 1 to 10. Your feedback is incredibly important and helps us create even more emotional and inspiring stories about love and life. Join our VIP area. Gain exclusive access to compelling and heartfelt gay content that celebrates love in all its forms. Discover new stories, special videos, and much more to inspire your heart and soul. Join our community today. We're excited to have you with us as we share more incredible stories together. Leave a comment, rate the story, and become part of this amazing family celebrating love and diversity.